Hey, so it's 3:20 a.m. and I was about ready to go to bed, but I wanted to read a little bit first. So I thought I'd read with you guys. The book 429, and then if you guys like this sort of thing, let me know and I'll keep going, or I guess it depends on the book, but, I can't find, I have a hard copy somewhere, but I can't find it, but I read part of it a while ago and I'm reading it again, but, so the name is Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins, and I just remember him having such a playful, creative style. It's just very ridiculous and kind of fanciful, and I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of it, but I'll read with you now. Okay. Today's special. The beet is the most intense of vegetables. The radish, admittedly, is more feverish, but the fire of the radish is a cold fire, the fire of discontent, not of passion. Tomatoes are lusty enough, yet there runs through tomatoes an undercurrent of frivolity. Beets are deadly serious. Slavic peoples get their physical characteristics from potatoes, their smoldering inquietude from radishes, their seriousness from beets. The beet is the melancholy vegetable, the one most willing to suffer. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. The beet is the murder returned to the scene of the crime. The beet is what happens when the cherry finishes with the carrot. The beet is the ancient ancestor of the autumn moon, bearded, buried, all but fossilized. The dark green sails of the grounded moon boat, stitched with veins of primordial plasma. The kite string that once connected the moon to the earth, now a muddy whisker drilling desperately for rubies. The beet was Rasputin's favorite vegetable. You could see it in his eyes. In Europe, there is grown widely a large beet they call the mangowurzel. Perhaps it is mangowurzel that we see in Rasputin. Certainly, there is a mangowurzel in the music of Wagner, although it is another composer whose name begins B-E-E-T. Of course there are white beets, beets that ooze sugar water instead of blood. But it is the red beet with which we are concerned, the variety that blushes and swells like a hemorrhoid for which there is no cure. An old Ukrainian proverb warns, a tale that begins with a beet will end with the devil. That is a risk we have to take. First chapter, Seattle. Priscilla lived in a studio apartment. It was called a studio apartment because art is supposed to be glamorous, and landlords have a vested interest in making us believe that artists prefer to sleep in their workrooms. Real artists almost never live in studio apartments. There isn't enough space, and the light is all wrong. Clerks live in studio apartments. File clerks, shop clerks, law clerks, community college students, elderly widows, and unmarried waitresses such as Priscilla. The building in which this particular studio apartment donned its false beret was built during the Great Depression. In Seattle, there are many such buildings, anointing their bricks in the rain on densely populated hillsides between Lake Washington and Elliott Bay. Architecturally, its plain facade and straight lines echoed the gown Eleanor Roosevelt wore to the inaugural ball, while its interior walls still reproduce faithfully the hues of the split pea mush dished up in hundreds of soup kitchens. Over the years, the building had been so lived in that it acquired a life of its own. Every toilet bowl gurgled like an Italian tenor with a mouthful of laveris, and the refrigerators made noises at night like a buffalo grazing. Most older studio apartments, the ones in those buildings of New Deal brick, harbored odors as definitive as their colors and sounds. Odors arrived through generations of salmon cakes frying and broccoli boiling, But here was where Priscilla's apartment differed. It smelled of chemicals, less mephitic than sweet, and it was like that smell that leaped to greet her, like a cooped-up pooch, when she let herself in on a weary midnight. The first thing she did, after switching on her overhead light, was kick off her low-heeled waitress shoes. The second thing she did was stub a toe on a table leg. The table at which innumerable windows had sat down to canasta, shuddered paroxysmally, causing beakers of chemicals to rattle and sway. Fortunately, a few drops of their contents were lost. Priscilla flopped on the couch that was also her bed and massaged her feet, devoting special attention to the affronted toe. "God damn it," she said. "I'm such a klutz. I don't deserve to live in this world. I ought to be sent to one of those planets where there isn't any gravity." Earlier that evening at the restaurant, she dropped a whole tray of cocktails. Inside her hose, her feet were as red as newborn mice. Steam seemed to rise from them. Mouse gas. She rubbed her feet until they felt comforted, and then she rubbed her eyes. With a sleepy sigh, she let herself topple over on the couch, only to be startled by a shower of silver coins. The evening's tips had cascaded from her pockets and scattered about her head and body, the couch and floor. She watched a dime roll across the worn carpet, as if heading for the exit. "Is this what they meant by runaway inflation?" she asked. "Come back here, you coward." Sighing again, she arose and gathered the money. The few crumpled bills she stuffed in her purse. The coins she trickled into a dusty fishbowl on the dresser. The bowl was full to overflowing. "Tomorrow I'll open a bank account," she vowed. She had made that vow before. She removed her uniform, a blue sailor dress with piping of white and red, and tossed it in a corner. At the bathroom sink, in her pantyhose and bra, she washed her hair. She felt too tired to wash her hair, but it so reeked of cook grease and cigarette smoke that it competed with the resident smell of the apartment, and that would never do. There was no cap for the shampoo bottle. In feet, she couldn't remember when it, or the toothpaste, had lost a cap. "I could have sworn there was a cap on it when I first bought it," she said. A number of short, curly hairs were stuck to the cake of soap. They made her wince. The hairs reminded her of an incident at work. She and Ricky usually took their breaks together. They would lock themselves in the employees' washroom and smoke a joint or blow a line of coke, anything to lighten the load of the trays. Inevitably, Ricky made lewd suggestions. Sometimes she'd casually lay her hands on Priscilla's body. Priscilla was not really offended. Ricky was one of the few people on the restaurant staff who could read something more intellectually demanding than a menu. Moreover, she was pretty, in a dank, faintly mustachioed way. Perhaps Priscilla was obliquely titillated by Ricky's advances. Usually she brushed them off in a manner that made them both laugh. On this night, however, when on the pretext of leveling a molehill that allegedly had bunched up in Priscilla's pantyhose, Ricky administered to the back of her upper thigh with lengthy and ever-widening caresses. Priscilla had snapped at her and punched her hard on the arm. At the end of the shift, Priscilla apologized. "I'm just tired," she told Ricky. "I'm truly goddamn exhausted." Ricky said it was okay, but said it in a tone that intimidated damage below the waterline of their friendship. Priscilla brooded over this as she plucked several pubes from the soap. The second function of the bathroom mirror is to measure murmurs in mental mud. Priscilla glanced at her seismograph and disliked the reading. She was as pallid as a Q-tip and as ready to unravel. Dropping the soap in the sink, she imposed a smile on her reflection. With a sudsy finger, she pushed at the triangular tip of her crisp little corn chip of a nose. She winked each eye, Her eyes were equally enormous, equally violet, but the left eye winked smoothly, while the right eye required effort and a scrunching of flesh. She tugged at her wet, autumn-colored hair as if she were stopping a trolley. "You're still as cute as a button," she told herself. "Of course, I've never seen a cute button, but who am I to argue with the wisdom of the ages?" She puckered her bubble-gum mouth until its exaggerated sensuality drew attention away from the blood-blue crescents beneath her eyes. "My bags may be packed, but I haven't left town. No wonder Ricky finds me irresistible. She's only human." Leaning her forehead against the scummy rim of the sink, Priscilla suddenly wept. She continued weeping until the heat of her tear water, the sheer velocity of its flow, finally obscured the already vague circumstances of its origins. Then, as memory after memory relinquished its sharp focus, and even fatigue and loneliness proved water-soluble, she shut her tear ducts with an almost audible resolve. She blew her nose on a washcloth. She had been out of toilet tissue for a week, tossed her clammy hair, pulled on a lab coat over her underwear, and stepped into the living room cum bedroom cum laboratory, where, over an assortment of burners, beakers, and bubbling glass tubing, she would toil with uncharacteristic fastidiousness until dawn. In the life of Priscilla, the genius waitress, this night was fairly routine. It differed significantly from every other night of her year in but one respect. At what she reckoned to be about 5 in the morning, her clock had run down and she hadn't gotten around to winding it. There was a soft rapping at her door. Since her neighborhood, Capitol Hill, was a high-crime district, and since she had no wish to be interrupted by Ricky or some man she'd once slept with out of need and then forgotten, she chose not to answer. At sunup, however, just prior to retiring for her customary and inadequate 6 hours of rest, she cracked the door to see whether her caller had left a note. She was puzzled to find on her doorsill a solitary lump of something, which after cautious examination she identified as a beet. Okay, that is the first chapter. Next chapter is called New Orleans. Okay, so yes, I'm going to go to bed now. But hopefully you like the flow and style. If you do, let me know. I'll keep reading with you guys. Or maybe I'll just, so you don't have to just stare at my face. I'll maybe make it into a podcast type thing so you can just listen to it instead. But yeah, okay. Alright, see you guys. Good night.